commission, although that you can't, well, on this platform, I can't see everyone, but I will be back on the other one in a minute, hopefully. As we have Mike Music, who will be sworn in on Monday with us for the agenda study. And this is the first reprieve for Interim Commissioner Selvage for him not having to be at one of our meetings. And to begin right away, if you are ready to go, the Municipal Boards and Committee meeting by Chairman Madden will kick off. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Mayor. We will begin the Municipal Boards and Committee meeting. It's a short agenda today. We just have one recommendation. This one is for the Police Pension Board of Trustees, and the Board of Trustees requests that the Commission ratify their appointment of Jamie Henderson to fulfill an unexpired term beginning February 16th, 2021 and ending July 1st, 2021. And I will entertain a motion to accept that recommendation. Thank you, Commissioner McCarley, and a second by the Mayor. Any discussion? Yes, Commissioner McCarley.
Why is there a vacancy? Why is this like a midterm switch?
I would defer to our city clerk, Kelly Coos. Do you know why there's a division? Kelly, we can't hear you. You're still muted.
I may have that answer. It was my understanding that one of the other folks had to leave midterm, and they were a retiree, a long-term assistant chief. I think Chief Link was that person who had served the board for a very, very long time, and it's my understanding he had to leave midterm.
You're correct.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion or questions? Seeing none. All in agreement with this recommendation, say aye. Any opposed? Nay? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. And then there's just an informational item which will be difficult to detail without showing on the screen, which will be disseminated, which is the 2021 Lakeland City Commission committee assignments. And we serve at the pleasure of the mayor, and he has made his assignments to include our new commissioner, Mr. Music. And so he has been assigned to several different areas on here. The Real Estate and Transportation Committee. I see him on the Aging Senior Task Force. I see him also on the LDDA, which would be exciting to help our downtown businesses. Also in Lakeland Sister Cities and the TPO. So I think those are his new committee assignments, if I'm not mistaken or missing anything, but certainly this is public record and available to anyone who'd like to see which commissioners and where the mayor sit on the various councils and committees and boards throughout the city and also, the county. So that is all the business that we have unless there's any new business. The mayor is showing what it looks like, and it's always available.
And so also, I was just going to add that he's on the Finance Committee meeting as well.
Okay. Oh, okay. So he's on the Finance Committee too. Great.
Yeah.
And, in case anyone thinks that the mayor and the commissioners only come to the public meetings, they could look at that paper and know that we go to a lot of other meetings. City Clerk?
I just wanted you to know that list is attached to the agenda item, so the public does have access to the assignments if they'd like to see it.
Great. Perfect. Okay, is there any other new business? Seeing none, I call the meeting adjourned at 8:16.
Perfectly timed to begin the Real Estate and Transportation Committee meeting, whose chairman is Commissioner Reed.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, it's 8:16, we're going to call the Real Estate and Transportation Committee to order. We have one order of business in reference to 802 North Massachusetts Avenue, the project Redfish LLC. And which of our attorneys will be addressing this today?
I'll start it off. Thank you, Commissioner. This may require a little bit more discussion than usual, but we'll get through it. There's three different things going on with this lease addendum with Project Redfish LLC, which you all know more commonly as Yarnell, Mass. I'll start with this most straightforward part of this, and that is an amendment to the lease to allocate 63 parking spaces to them just to the west of their building. Kevin, can you throw up that the diagram just so we have a good visual? Okay, there we go. Okay, so the building, as you know, is on the southeast corner of that property by Massachusetts Avenue, and just to the west of that, you'll see a bunch of numbered spaces. Those will all be allocated to Yarnell, Mass for their use. There are 6 spaces that are shaded in gray up at the northwest side, and there's a verbal there that says 6 house management and loading designated spaces. Those were allocated to house management as part of a lease amendment that the City Commission approved back in last summer. So the remaining number of spaces there will go to Yarnell, Mass. The other parts of this amendment are one, Yarnell, Mass requested a rent deferment for a period of 15 months as a result of being shut down by various executive orders by the governor and the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. They have requested, at least they originally requested, a written deferment for 15 months beginning June 1st of 2020 and continuing through August 31st of 2021. They would then repay what their deferred rent as well as their regular rent beginning September 1st of 2021 over a 12-month period. So the base rent beginning September 1st, 2021 under a rent deferral approach would be $1,261. The deferred rent would then be another $1,576.25 per month. So their total rent payment for September of 2021 to October of 2022 during this catch-up period, $2,837.25 per month. The CRA Advisory Board heard that request and also saw some sales figures for Yarnell, Mass during the effective time period. Kevin has just thrown those up on the screen as well. And after considering the effect of the shutdowns on their sales numbers, as well as the fact that this is a little bit of a different lease because Yarnell, Mass contributed over $500,000 to the construction of that building on the property. So they've got a more significant investment in this property, even though the property still is owned by the CRA. They've invested significant sums into the building that's now on that property. So hearing all those factors, the advisory board decided to go a different direction from the staff recommendation and has requested and has unanimously recommended to the City Commission that the rent for that 15-month period, which is a total amount of $18,915, be forgiven instead of deferred and then repaid over a subsequent 12-month period. So there was a difference between the staff recommendation and the ultimate recommendation of the advisory board that we'll need you all to reconcile today and Monday. And then the third part of this, staff, in addition to the either rent deferral or rent forgiveness, is simply requesting that there's a 5% annual escalator in the rent during the initial term of this lease, which will end October 31st of 2022. Staff's recommending that 5% escalator be waived and that the rent be kept at the base rent of $1,261. So a little bit more complicated than the normal real estate matter, but just need y'all to consider that and give us some direction as to which direction you want to go with this, rent deferral or forgiveness in particular.
Thank you, Palmer. There again, from my perspective, there again, unfortunately or fortunately, we own a building that has a package store and lounge in it as well. And I understand the difficulties they went through from that standpoint. There again, we had some forgiveness of rent and stuff like that, and deferred some payments from that standpoint. And there again, their sales were substantially more than the group that we had. So, but would anybody else like to, Commissioner Walker? Would you you have the floor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hearing the different scenario or different perspective that Mr. Davis shared, could I hear from Mr. Drumgo, please, as to why we find the difference between, I guess, what the board is recommending versus staff as to what's going on. I surely would want to be a support to any of our businesses that have suffered because of what's the situation involving what we all have come through with this pandemic. But if I can hear some more information, more history about what's going on, because I know when I pass through that particular location, oftentimes I see it's still not as, I would say, as attended or well, have well attendance that we that was there before all the shutdown, that kind of thing. And of course, people are still coming out even more. So I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing to be a support to business that I think want to get back to where they were, especially so before the pandemic, and slowly trying to get there. And we have, I don't see this being negative, but they're kind of off the beaten path in a sense because of not being in the core of our downtown relative to where they are now, which, we're hopefully, have more traffic in that area as things continue to improve. So again, I know it's a long kind of a question or comment to get to a question. Mr. Drongo, could you provide us some more history about what's happening?
Yes, sir. Well, the tenants at Yard on Mass, as City Attorney Davis mentioned, they did make a significant investment in this building, which is very much unlike a lot of our, I would say, other projects that we've engaged in with the CRA. They put up $500,000, and that's net, over $500,000 net to construct that building. And then, of course, we still own it, and they lease from us. So it puts them in a situation where they're paying us relative to the investment they've already made into the building. I think at the time that this was brought to the advisory board, the tenants, the Yard on Mass team, they were being very cognizant and mindful of what their request was. The city had already deferred rent for some of its tenants during that time, so there was a 3-month deferment that was on the table, and it was granted. And then with the additional shutdown that was specific to their business model, it put them in a situation where they just didn't have any revenues at all for the month of August. It was shown in that table. So, we wanted to, one, hear their requests, and then also for them to be able to recapture some of those dollars at the end of their that deferral period. So basically to capture that deferred rent in the final year of their lease term. So when we did bring that to the board, there was a lot of discussion about the investment that was made by the tenant and the potential that their sales would not rebound at that time. And so, being where we are now, I think it's hindsight for us to be able to look back and say that, they did have some sales revenues, but they are off the beaten path, and they are still trying to gain their footing and get their customer base back to where it was. And that's something that their owner operators have reiterated, that they are still building on that customer base. And with a lot of the projects that are coming into the core, they're core adjacent, but they still are not downtown in the center, in the hub or around the lakefront. Some businesses you see like the joinery and the rec room. So they still are trying to rebuild that customer base. I do want to leave some space for Commissioner Madden, because she was the representative for you all on the CRA advisory board, and it was her recommendation as well. So if Commissioner Madden would like to add to that.
I would love to add. Thank you so much, Mr. Drongo. So, if you can just kind of rewind to last summer, we were thinking about ways that we could help our small businesses, and LDDA kind of was, looking at ways to help the downtown core businesses. We had businesses like the Rec Room, who have just begun construction. The joinery was just opened. And then, the Yard on Mass had just opened up to right, prior, and then our hit with COVID. And then, of course, Mr. Grungrove brings up the business model being specific to the last type of business that could open throughout the shutdown. And so I just felt like, when you look at everything, it's hard to measure, apples to apples, with CRA grants, because some people will say, well, these folks got this much money and these folks got this much money. And it makes a big difference on where the building is located, who owns the building ultimately. So you look at the joinery, who is owned by a private person, that we, CRA and the city invested into a private building. And then we have this Yard on Mass building, where it's the private business who's invested heavily in a city-owned building. And, $500,000 to invest and to think about, whether they had an investor partner or if they're paying, on a loan every month on that. We don't know whether or not they are getting any relief on that payment, but that is into our, public building that they've invested. And, they are very vested. I mean, if they go out of business, they lose that $500,000 investment. So I think $18,000 of forgiveness is nothing. That could have been like 1 week's worth of construction cost increase, with the price of construction right now. So to me, it was just a very simple decision to be able to think, why would we do the same arrangement with a lease deferment as we do with other folks who have not invested $500,000 in the building and are paying rent. So that's kind of the uniqueness of the situation. And they also mentioned it's an outlier no one's just walking down the street for, the market or for First Friday and seeing this business. They have to absolutely know about the business, get in a car and drive and park to be a patron of this business. And so that's the whole point of the CRA, to invest in areas first, to get people to a new area, to revitalize an area that would be difficult for other investors to take that risk. So I absolutely wholeheartedly support the forgiveness of the rent and the waive of the 5% annual escalator.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Walker.
And yes, that's what. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's what I wanted to hear, because I want to make sure that I too want to. If I hear what's being shared by my colleague as well as staff, in support of a business where I know, as I said earlier in my comment, as the question was being asked of me, it's off the beaten path, and I know that can present some challenges along with whatever else that it was presented to many of our businesses, because of the pandemic situation. And I would agree, Commissioner Madden, that's what we're here for, and be in support of as best we can. And when you put that kind of money into a place, you want to make sure it's a win-win. So I want to just make sure I understood the history. And that's why I asked for those comments to be made, so I can make an intelligent decision myself as part of this committee. Thank you so very much.
Mayor Muntz, you have the floor.
Also not part of the committee, but providing input along with Commissioner Walker. I think the one thing that may not have been mentioned in addition to that, and I concur with everything just said, is the uniqueness of the property. That the way that was developed doesn't make that easily transferable to a lot of other things. It's designed to be what it is and the way that it's laid out. And so it would require more construction to make that useful for some other entity going forward. And so the absence of materiality here in terms of the dollars and the opportunity it provides and the support that the CRA, by the way, I want to comment because we don't get a chance to do this very often. I think at least you are providing great leadership through the CRA efforts and the work that's being done. And we say that at events, but not necessarily always on record here. And certainly that's my strong opinion, and I'm grateful for it. I think underscores why we should not defer, but eliminate the expense.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question again. Unfortunately, I just got this morning. I know it came in late. I tried reading it again last night, but I didn't have the opportunity to read these modifications as I normally would and cogitate over, I guess you say. But can you go with the terms of the 5% again, please, sir?
Yes, the lease provides for a 5% increase in rent each year of the initial term of the lease. The lease, at least the rent portion of the lease began in November of 2019 and will continue. The initial term will continue until October 31st of 2022. And so without relief by the city commission, the rent will increase by 5% each year. And staff is recommending that 5% escalator be removed from the initial term only, and then it would apply to any renewal term.
And so when would that renewal term, when would the next renewal term begin?
If exercised, it would begin November of 2022.
So we've got another 18 months from now almost, right?
Approximately.
Do I hear any other comments from any of my other commission members? I know we're normally it's out of the norm, but because our committee members are here. But Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to add, or Chad?
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. I agree. This is an extenuating circumstance, and the area that we're talking about, it is not secluded, but a little more difficult to access so that they don't have that common foot traffic that a downtown business would have. So I think this is a really interesting and, complicated deal, but I think that Elise has done a good job providing the information. I appreciate Commissioner Madden representing us on the CRA and sharing her thoughts as well.
Thank you. The only thing I have is, again, I didn't get a chance to look over those numbers real good. Just so your information, typically speaking, on a bar situation, your gross profit is around 75% of your gross sales. So, and I couldn't see some of those numbers there, but there's probably some pretty good money to be made there. But in some of those areas, but I'm inclined. Do I hear a motion from anyone?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
I believe that the committee assignments have already changed effective today. So it's Commissioner Reed, Commissioner Music, and Commissioner McLeod as members of the committee at this point.
Okay, so Mayor Munson's not on the committee
I didn't know where I'm supposed to be.
Kevin just threw up the numbers again. You had mentioned Commissioner Reed.
Yes, because I knew, I thought it was Mr. Walker and Mayor Munson myself. We have new members now?
That's correct.
Who are they now?
Yourself, Commissioner Music, and Commissioner McLeod.
So may I jump in here? Commissioner Reed and my colleagues, I was operating under the old committee assignments. And so, typically I would jump in and be engaged on the committees. I was just enjoying the discussion and the debate. And I agree with Commissioner Madden's the reasoning. And I'm just wondering, if we're down a committee member with our new commissioner, do we need to hold on this, or, Palmer, how would you advise us to move forward?
I think Commissioner Music is here. I don't know. I think he's here. I'm not sure if he's online or not speaking, but I know he's here. I'm not sure if he's.
Well, and we're working on his camera. He is listening, and so he can speak. Yes.
Can you hear? Can you see?
Okay. He's listened to everything. Sorry.
And was he aware that he was on this committee? Just making sure that he did know. Okay. I'm sorry. I missed the updated committee assignments, Mayor. I haven't gotten to that yet, but.
Commissioner Music just stood in my office, said he can hear perfectly, but cannot be see. Do you want to come in here a minute? And he can look over my shoulder a moment. And do you have any recommendation?
So if you're not comfortable with anything today, we can certainly defer this to Monday's meeting.
Yeah.
I would make a move to approve the.
Do we need to do two different motions?
Depends on whether there's a split or not. I mean, the three items up for consideration are the the parking lot allocation, the 5%, the waiver of the 5% rent increase, and then rent forgiveness versus rent deferral.
Mr. Walker, you made the motion. Which is your preference?
It wouldn't be Commissioner Walker, it'd be
Commissioner McLeod.
yes.
Well,
Okay,
I'm comfortable, Commissioner Reed, Mr. Chair, with making a motion to approve all three.
The third element being what?
And Commissioner Music has seconded that. All those in favor, raise your right hand. How about that? Okay, Mr. Music, Commissioner Music raised his hand as well. So there we go. So at this point, I presume we've discussed all of our business, and it is 8:37, and we will adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. You did a great job navigating through both the technical difficulties as well as the committee changes, as well as the three element items. So thank you. And there is nothing else on that, City Attorney Davis, that you want to touch base on?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Well, that brings us 8:37, and so 8:30 is the announced time of our agenda study, so we can begin our agenda study. This is working very, very well today. We mentioned this earlier, Commissioner-elect Music. We are excited to see you sworn in on Monday, and that's the first item of business that we'll have at 3 p.m. By the way, this is our last 3 p.m. commission meeting, and we will start in June at 9 a.m. with the commission meetings on the new and approved schedule. We will then, after that moment, and we thank you for all the investment in campaigning and doing 2 rounds of elections, for your willingness to serve. We'll go to proclamations. And by the way, anything you want to say this morning, Mr. Music? I should pause for a second.
No, just trying to get going. Looking forward to it. Appreciate the team and ready to serve and to lead.
I will compliment him on being in all week this week to come up to speed in advance and meeting with people and doing the rounds and getting on. So that's terrific. Proclamations will be Community Action Month, which is actually a declaration of doing things in the community and community action. Lakeland Magic has a proclamation, and then we have, this is Florida Plus. America as a proclamation, and we'll have Mrs. Florida Plus there. We'll also have National Safe Voting Week, National Stop the Bleed Day, and Water Safety Awareness Month. So as you'll recall, April and May are generally very, very heavy proclamation months. We will then approve the committee reports, or at least bring those up for a vote, and then the items on the consent agenda include the asterisk items. So there's certainly the minutes. And then on 5E, under city manager, that's the recommendation regarding the amendment to the FAA reimbursement for instrument landing for the ILS category 3. And so city manager Strauss, would you like to take that one, sir?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. Yes, sir. For consideration for consent, we have an agenda item under the city manager's section of E. Is a recommendation regarding an amendment to the FAA reimbursement agreement for the Instrument Landing System, or ILS, Category 3 project at Lakeland Linder International Airport. On June 17, 2019, the City Commission authorized city officials to enter into a grant agreement to upgrade runway 9 to a Category 3 ILS capable runway at the airport. The airport planned and implemented this upgrade as required by its contract with Amazon and is obligated to be completed by November 2021. On August 6, 2020, the city and the FAA entered into a reimbursable agreement to establish equipment necessary for the ILS. Due to the accelerated timeline to complete the ILS and a change of scope in the project, the FAA is requesting an amendment to increase the reimbursable agreement in the amount of $113,675.40. Article 9, subsection E of the agreement permits the FAA to alter the estimated cost of the project and require additional advance payment at any time in the process. Scope changes include the procurement and installation of the engine remote monitoring system, which monitors the backup generator in support of the approach light system with sequenced flashing lights, telecommunication connectivity for the system, and the FAA's increased estimation of personnel costs supporting the installation activities. It's recommended that the City Commission authorize the appropriate city officials to enter into the amendment to the non-federal reimbursable agreement between the Federal Aviation Administration and the City of Lakeland's Lakeland Linder International Airport Agreement, subject to approvals from the Florida Department of Transportation. It is also then recommended that the City Commission authorize an appropriation in the same amount in the Airport Capital Fund to be funded from the airport's operating fund surplus. That completes presentation. I'll stand for any questions, and I think probably Mr. Conrad has joined us as well.
Any round outs on that, Mr. Conrad?
No, I think obviously the memo says it all, and this is hopefully the last piece. And one piece with this is, if they don't spend this money, then we'll be reimbursed as well. So this is just to make sure, based on their calculations, the FAA's calculations, to make sure they have enough funds to cover the personnel that to complete the install of our system. And I did reference this the last time we spoke about the Cat 3 ILS, that we may be coming back with this, and here it is today. So hopefully this is the last piece.
And could you comment on why it's so important?
On this piece, this reimbursable? Yeah, so I think our initial reimbursable with the FAA was a little over $1 million. Obviously, this is an additional $113,000. But since we've been going through this process, the FAA is using this money, one, for all of their engineers that had to review all of our plans to install the system and, to enable us to go to construct. And then they have personnel here on the ground during the entire installation, which is ongoing at this point. So this is just to make sure that they have enough funds to cover those personnel to be here the entire time to manage the installation of the system. And then also just to remind the commission, the FAA, once we are complete, will take over the system and maintain it in perpetuity. So it's a good thing for the airport.
Any questions by commissioners? Any problem with leaving this on consent? Because it really is an affirmation of everything else that we have put in place on this project. Oh, everybody good? Thumbs up if you're good on that, leaving that on consent. Okay, great, we'll leave that on. Then that brings us on to City Attorney, item C3 on Tetra Tech.
Thank you. The city's water use permit with SWFMUD, the Southwest Florida Water Management District, is in effect until 2038, barring any regulatory changes that we've seen lately. And as part of that permit, we are required to continuously monitor the effects of our wells on the surrounding wetlands as well as regional hydrologic conditions, and make reports every 2 years to SWFMUD regarding those effects. This is a task authorization with Tetra Tech to both perform that monitoring and prepare the required reports. Tetra Tech has been on board with water utilities going all the way back to 2008 when the Northeast well field was permitted through SWFMUD. So they're very familiar with the operations of our wells and the effects on the surrounding wetlands and the aquifer. So this is just a task authorization with them to prepare reports and do the monitoring. The not to exceed amount of the task authorization is $130,438. And Bill Anderson and Ruff and Gray are on if you have any technical questions. You're muted, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I wasn't, so I put myself on mute. That was reverse. Any questions on this from any of the commissioners? All right, Commissioner Madden.
Thank you, Mayor. So just kind of a point of reference. So, just kind of like when I'm thinking about making these official, monitoring reports so that we have these, and then we can show them to the EPA or whoever needs them. It makes me wonder, have we used, is Tetra Tech who we've used for years? Are they, the best in Florida? Are they highly recommended by the EPA? Just a little bit more about Tetra Tech and how we chose them and how long we've used them.
I'll let Bill answer that. I see you just popped on.
Yeah, and I will defer to Ruff and Gray, our compliance manager, but we have used Tetra Tech for a number of years. Chuck Drake, the principal, has been is very knowledgeable of this area of the hydrogeological conditions, specifically in our northeast well field. And again, we rely on him. He is very, very good, known statewide for his expertise and work. I hope that answers your question, Commissioner.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. Chuck and Tetra Tech have actually been working for us over 20 years. Chuck himself served on the St. John's Water Management District Board. And we don't report to EPA with this. This is actually Southwest Florida Water Management District. And it's actually 2 reports annually. There's a small one mid-year, which is actually going out and monitoring the vegetation, and that's by a group. It's actually a botanist that does that report. It has all of the great splattergrass and hydrographs and things that are necessary. The group at Tetra Tech are very well known, and they do serve multiple entities throughout the state. So we have a very high level of confidence, and we have had no problems with the reports with Swift Mud. We get an annual back whenever they're turned in, and it's always been very good.
Which is the importance of continuing that kind of compliance. So, any other questions? All right, then we will, thumbs up on leaving on consent, if so. All right, we'll leave it on consent. That brings us to, and thank you very much for that wonderful, and for our wonderful water quality every day. We're appreciative. Great job, team. Finance Director, 7A, Mr. Brossart.
Yes, good morning. We have one appropriation request for you on this agenda. Throughout the fiscal year, the city receives various donations from private individuals that are designated for expenditure on specific projects or operating expenses at the donor's request. These donations are not included in our operating budgets, primarily because we can't anticipate what those dollar amounts might be. We also receive reimbursement for certain types of expenses. The most noticeable that you might see in the general fund are reimbursement for overtime duties performed by the Lakeland police officers for outside entities. The reimbursements and the associated expenses, same thing. We can't anticipate them, so we don't budget for those. Our practice is that semi-annually we bring those to the commission for formal appropriation and amend those operating budgets according. This list is for the period of October 1st of 2020 through April 30th of 2021. Any questions?
So that you can see them each listed by line items. Any commissioners have any questions on any of those or the appropriation itself? Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mike. Is this about normal? Is this anything out of the ordinary other than the excessive we've seen on the LPD?
No. Even the LPD, that's services they provide to off-duty. That we're reimbursed 100% for that. No, sir. Some of the larger ticket items that you tend to see from time to time are grants. I would point you to the bottom of third page. There's a grant for the North Wabash Avenue extension, all of which everybody knew about. That occurred in November. Just formally putting it through the appropriation process. Mr. and Mrs. McGee, when they provided the $600,000 for John McGee Park, that's another large one as well. So Heritage Parking Plaza, we, through City Manager Delgado at the time, that was tracked and expected and discussed with the developer. So that was not a surprise. So no, sir, nothing of any magnitude that's a surprise.
Thank you. Again, you did mention one that I was going to ask a second question in reference to John McGee. Did they get any oversight into how that is implemented and what kind of actual things go into the park?
Oh, yes, sir. The only reason I can answer that is because I was actually in the first meeting with the McGees as we talked about timing for the monies being provided from GiveWell. And they actually were sitting with Pam and Bob and their team to go through and find out what exactly the McGees would like to see and how they wanted to see it designed. And Pam, being as creative as she is, the feedback I've heard is that it's been a great process so far with the McGees.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So just on a clarity basis, these are funds that are received that wouldn't have been part of a budget process that get fully reimbursed, or are the actual genesis of, so you see the tree investments that several people have made throughout here because they just want trees in the city, you know, and it's wonderful, but this is the accountability that you have in the finance department to be able to make sure all of that tracks in and through.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. Got to leave a trail for everything.
Yeah, I know. Looked like the $100 damage at one of the parks I remember was on here. Can't find it really fast, but I would assume that's somebody that had to reimburse for some damage that was done, probably.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So any other questions on this? Any problem leaving it on the consent agenda? All good? All right, thumbs up. All right, we'll leave it on. And so then that brings us to utility C1, which is the ag lime sales gypsum byproduct.
Thank you. I'll handle that one. When coal is burned at Unit 3, a lot of you know that produces gypsum as a byproduct. And for years, we've been able to market that and sell that as a commodity. It's used in drywall and other uses as well. We're wrapping up operations at Unit 3, as you know. There's still 10,000 tons of gypsum byproduct on the site out there that we need to get rid of. And so we are proposing an agreement with Ag Lime Cells for them to take that gypsum byproduct away from the storage yard at Unit 3. They would pay Lakeland Electric $6 per ton, so a total of $60,000 for that byproduct. The city would be responsible for loading the byproduct for Ag Lime. That's estimated to cost the city $5,000 to perform that function. So the net revenue to the city as a result of this contract with Ag Lime would be $55,000, and it will get rid of the remaining gypsum byproduct that we need to eliminate out there. So that's recommended for your approval. I believe Steve Reinhardt is on if you have any questions.
Well, and the contrast to that is if we'd spend $20,000 if we dumped the material. So it's a nice delta. Any questions by commissioners? Any problems leaving that on the consent? Okay, thumbs up. All right, we will do so. So that's the end of our consent review. Thank you so much for each of those presentations. We have no requests to appear from the general public and no equalization hearing at this meeting. That brings us to public hearings. Ordinances A1. City Attorney Davis.
Thank you. Kevin, could you throw up the map of the Old Kathleen Road right of way? All right, so I know Commissioner Music hasn't been involved in this. A lot of y'all have seen this before. The city owns that rectangular or triangular shaped parcel just above the blue crosshatch right of way of Old Kathleen Road that was somewhat abandoned with all the realignment that occurred out there. Lake Wire Development LLC owns the larger Old Fort Tal site to the south of that right of way. Lake Wire development is closely associated with the individuals developing Bonnet Springs Park. They are planning to sell the property to the south of the Blue Cross Hatch right of way for a multi-use development. And the idea is that they will use the revenue generated from that sale to fund somewhat of an endowment fund for the ongoing maintenance of Bonnet Springs Park. Lake Wire Development has a contract with the city to purchase that rectangular shaped piece of property, as well as the Blue Hatch area, once they are ready to close with a third party for that multi-use development. In the meantime, we need to vacate that right of way, the Blue Hatch area. When we do so, under Florida law, the south half of that right of way will go to Lake Wire Development, and the city will acquire ownership and fee of the north half of that right of way. So this item is to finalize the vacation of that right of way. So the right of way will go away, and half will go to Lake Wire, half will go to the city. Both parties will retain an easement over the entire right of way for ingress and egress and any utilities that might be there. So this is basically paving the way for an ultimate sale of that entire property to a multi-use developer.
Any questions on this agenda item that we need? Yes, Commissioner McClellan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, Palmer, I was just curious about, you said under Florida law, so the right-of-way splits in half. What is that due to ingress and egress in the future? I'm just curious why that's the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat of a technical thing, but I mean, the Florida law kind of treats right-of-way as not so much ownership as more of an easement right almost, and the underlying ownership or fee simple right to that property, it always stays there underneath it. So when you get rid of the right of way, Florida law just presumes that underlying fee simple ownership then springs back into full existence again. And it's half to one side, half to the other under most circumstances. That's the general rule. There are some exceptions to that, but not here.
Okay, thank you. It's helpful.
You're muted again.
If there are no other questions, let's go to City Manager 5A.
Thank you, and good morning again. Under City Manager section on agenda item A, it's a recommendation regarding an award of request for proposal number 1103 to Gallagher Benefit Services for employee benefits broker consultant services. Gallagher Benefit Services is the city's current employee benefits broker consultant. The current contract is due for renewal on June 1st, 2021. The employee benefits broker consultant is instrumental in analyzing the marketplace, consulting on behalf of the city regarding changes to our benefits plans, recommending benefit plan changes, preparing mandated certified actuarial reports, and assisting with requests for proposal preparations, as well as securing a comprehensive benefits package for our employees, retirees, and their dependents. On February 12, 2021, 91 prospective vendors received notification of the Employee Benefits Broker Consultant RFP. None were local. 4 proposals were received at the RFP opening on April 13, 2021. A city selection committee ranked submissions on May 4th, 2021, after the scheduled interviews had been completed. A decision to retain or recommend for retention Gallagher Benefit Services is based on several factors. Gallagher is the leader in public sector business with 775 public sector clients nationally. In Florida, Gallagher represents 45 or more cities and towns, 15 or more counties, and 14 school boards, and they have experience and expertise to support the city's needs. Gallagher has expanded their scope of work on this RFP to include monthly reporting and quarterly data analytics reporting. Additional data will give the city the needed information to expand our efforts around utilization and cost control. The Gallagher team has been expanded, adding an additional senior consultant with over 20 years of experience and a senior client manager that would serve the city. The healthcare delivery system is changing due to COVID, Gallagher will continue to deliver new innovative solutions to the city as they emerge. Some examples include the expansion of things like telemedicine, concierge, surgery services, and specialty drug programs, which will help lead to lower cost for the members of our plan. Additionally, Gallagher provided in their response a credit for ongoing actuarial services that will reduce the current cost for these services annually by $5,000. It is recommended that the City Commission authorize the appropriate city officials to execute the agreement with Gallagher Benefit Services to provide the employee benefits broker consultant services that would be effective June 1st, 2021. The annual cost of those services would be $128,000 and will remain in effect for 3 years through June 1st, 2024, with then 2 additional 1-year renewal options. That completes staff's presentation. We'll stand for any questions.
I have a question for Joyce. One of the questions we have discussed in the past was whether or not this RFP has extended to other vendors, and that was brought up and certainly is inherent in this. How comfortable are you with Gallagher? And maybe just give us a comment with respect to that, if you don't mind.
I would love to do that. We actually, of the 4 responses that we received on this RFP, the top 3 vendors that responded all were able to give us, the basis of our needs for this consulting services. And so we dug down pretty deep to make sure that all of the criteria that would help us as the size of our population for our health plan is. We have over 4,800 lives that we look at with multiple different insurance services, from health on down to life insurance and different variables like that. One of the key factors that was beneficial and has been beneficial in the past for us is the in-house actuarial services, which we've relied on quite strongly in the past to run scenarios for us to make sure that the numbers are where we need to be. And the in-house actuarial services were very important. And that was what brought us back up to the Gallagher Benefit Services that were there.
And I certainly like the expansion of the areas of telemedicine and some of the drug and concierge mentions there in that as well. Commissioner McCarley.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Joyce. I have a couple questions. Why in the presentation don't we see the numbers on the bids? Like you have them in preferential order, but usually we see a number next to each company name. And then I have a follow-up question.
So the number on the memo, the ranking, that is actually the ranking. So you see on the memo a 1 for Gallagher Benefit Services, and then both Foundation Risk Partners and McGriff Insurance ranked equally as number 2. So those top 3 were very close in the ranking. Does that answer your question?
No, I'm actually asking about the bids. What were the actual bids?
The dollar value?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sure. They were all very close as well.
In the memo, so I was just curious why they weren't in this memo.
The pricing on this bid was only 20% of the ranking features within the scope of work that we had asked for. So Foundation Risk Partners was annual fee for services, $125,000. Some of the inclusions that we had asked for that weren't necessarily clear is there's an annual GASB valuation that the actuarial services need to provide, and that can range anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 a year in cost. So some of that is outside of the scope of the fee for services that is provided by the consultant. McGriff Insurance Services was $115,000 annually fee for services. None of the reporting for the actuarial services were included in their fee for service. Gallagher Benefits was the $128,000, which did include all of the actuarial services that we require. And then Willis Towers Watson was $145,000 fee for service. and some of their reporting was included.
Well, I Googled a couple of the companies and saw that Gallagher doesn't have a Lakeland office, but the foundation partners doing business as a, I think it's, the name of it starts with an A. They have two, they have two Lakeland offices. So there wasn't a local preference, and the memo said that there was no local preference in that. So if it's a local office, even if it's a satellite, it doesn't count in local vendor preference.
What we did was we looked at that because I had that very same question. So I'm glad you asked that. And so I went to Mark Rayford and had him check through the business licensing on that to see their local office just opened last September. And under our local vendor preference, they would need to be there a year before it qualified for that. So they're very close. And like I said before, they were all three very close in their ability to do what we needed.
Thank you.
You're
Good
welcome.
questions, Commissioner McCarley. Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Joyce, I'll preface this question by stating, I know the number of years I've sat here on this dais, Gallagher has always seemed to be the preferred vendor that had been selected. But my question is I guess lean toward, do we see them being the one that usually went out because of the nature of our kind of operation when it comes to our scope of what we have here for our city, you know, being that we don't participate in the Social Security system. There's a lot of other things that, you know, that we don't do, and we do have that most other maybe municipalities that may have. I just wondered that because as we hear in this question, and the question's been asked today, I've heard over the last number of years. So, but I've always, Gallagher has always been the one that kind of seems to be the one that can rise up to the top and be the one that preferred, one that gets chosen. Is there any factors in that particular makeup of how our city itself is city scope and operation is that supports any of that?
Yes, that's a good question. We have a health plan with 4 different benefit structures, and 3 of those benefit structures are grandfathered under the Affordable Health Care. And so having familiarity with our health plan, the way it's structured, is a big benefit for the consultant to be able to assist us with recommendations, with providing us the best possible price for benefit that we would find out there. And so there have been some challenges, even when I first came to Lakeland, to make sure that we understood how those grandfather plans operate and what that means when it comes to providing those benefits.
Mr. McCarley.
Just a follow-up, Joyce. I mean, I don't think this is the way, but if we're writing the RFPs, we're not writing the RFPs based on Gallagher since they have such a long-standing, like, what are our checks and balances on that, Joyce, just to be clear?
So in the RFP, I'll give you an example. The minimum qualifications that we ask for because of the size of our plan and the type of plan that we have that is very diverse and complicated, we asked for at least, excuse me, 4 public entity clients with 2,000 plus employees and retirees covered under a self-insured medical health plan. The second bullet is more than 10 years consulting public entity clients in the state of Florida. The third bullet is in-house resources to include actuarial, legal, compliance, and specialty insurance services as needed. And then the fourth, excuse me, support staff meetings, committee meetings, and city workshops and other meetings as needed. So we rely very heavily on the feedback from our consultant and our broker in a lot of different areas. We have the unions, as you know, they're very strong presence here. We've had to use them in support of some of the health plan initiatives that we've had to defend, I guess I'll say, with those unions. We've really relied heavily on the actuarial services to put together scenarios to see if they're going to work for us. And we've had a very successful 4 years since I've been here with our numbers through our health plan, where we've not seen very large increases at all. And we've been able to really hold those numbers over that time when things have been very difficult. And they have been in support of that and have gone to bat with us when I've gone back to them and said, that increase isn't acceptable. You know, I need you to help hold those numbers because of where we're at right now.
Just one more follow-up and I'll wrap up. But I think, isn't this the what we had discussed when Commissioner Franklin was still here about it was an annual contract, or were we just coming off of another 3-year contract? And then, you know, I think for me, annually, if it can open back up to, you know, some other groups to really work toward helping us, I just get a little leery on working with the same group over and over and over again. Even if they're great, and I want them to be successful and be great and provide us the best service possible for our employees. But I have a little pause in this, just because it almost sounds like that we are just deferring to that group again after so many years, and you know, that it's a lock for them. So I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just asking about it because I know that Commissioner Franklin had brought it up last year when we discussed it. So I guess 2 questions. Number one is, was this an annual contract and now it's going to go to a 3-year contract with those 2 additional renewal terms? So that would be 5 years, maybe, with this group. And then the second one being, how do we look at other groups if they haven't had an opportunity to provide such service?
Understood. Can you go back to your first question? I'm sorry, please.
It was about Franklin. We discussed this last year with Commissioner Franklin. Is this just the end of the 1-year term with Gallagher, or are we on the end of a 3-year term with them?
This is a different broker services. So we have employee health benefits. We employ broker services for that. And then we have our risk management. So our property and boiler machinery and airport liability. So I think that's the one you're referring to, that what last year when we went into, I'll be going out for bid for that again this fall. So that was under a 2-year contract. The employee health benefits, we actually had gone out in 2017. So this is the end of that. That was actually 4 years ago. The continuity that is helpful for us with the employee benefits is in order to help maintain the pricing on our health plan, our excess carrier stop loss, so that we don't find ourselves in a place where, we're having to put some really strong, high increases onto our employees for those health benefits. We blend with our clinic to help keep those prices low, and the broker is critical piece in making that happen.
Thank you, Joyce. I'm finished, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for all the questions.
No problem.
Okay.
Good questions. Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. There again, I have concerns similar to Sarah. I would like to see the numbers on the memo as well. And it seems as though the RFP, if they left out stuff, we didn't relay to them what we're really looking for. If they left out components that they should have included and they got eliminated because they didn't include that. But again, I have pause as well in basically a 5-year deal. And I'd like to maybe see it reduced to 2 or something like that. I don't know if we did it for a 3-year with 2-year option. Was that the proposal, or was it just, and that's what they came back with and said, this is what they want? Invariably, I think we need to, and I don't need to do y'all's job. Y'all know, y'all do this much more than I do. And I applaud you for your efforts, and I'm glad you're doing it versus me. But I just think we need to open it up a little bit more to, and definitely the local preference type of thing. If they have an opportunity to come back at a second bite of the apple, I guess you'd say, or something of that nature. But I know Gallagher's been around a long time. They've been doing it since I've been a commissioner, and I guess they're doing the other one as well. Actually, it was ironic. I called my son-in-law, who's in the business, and just asked him some questions, and he said they're probably one of the biggest ones in the state, or maybe in at least in our area for sure. And he did mention the one down in Naples. They're a big one as well. Obviously, they were substantially more money. I didn't know what the prices were or anything, but I agree. I just kind of said my piece, but it just maybe I don't know if there's anything we can keep an open mind and do something. Anyway, that's it.
Just so that you're aware, when we go out in the RFP, we do request the 3-year contract to hold the rate so that we know what we need to budget annually, at least for that extended period of time. And that's what this is. This is 3 years.
Thank you. And of course, we have an option on the 2-year extension to visit that before we ever extend it. Absolutely.
Did you call my name, Mr. Mayor? All right, thank you. And I hear my colleagues and what they're saying, and I too, have sort of those kind of things that come across my mind as I've sat here these number of years. And this particular subject has been, I think, has been discussed quite a bit. And I not knowing, but it seemed like, as I just shared earlier in my comment, or in my comments, Gallagher always rises to the plate. But why is that? Is it because, they are the ones that have the wherewithal versus someone else? I don't know, but I certainly, have seen it happen, and the questions being asked, I think, are very warranted. Because they always are the one that's chosen, it appears. And I'm like you, Commissioner Reed. I don't do the work, but I want to make sure that we are doing what's best to support, the RFP process, and not having the one chosen always be the one chosen. But if they're the one, I know we have that kind of situation with some other particular concerns, especially when it comes to unique kind of situations when it comes to our airport and our utility. There's some things, the scope of what is being done, you find you have the same kinds of businesses or companies that do the bidding and be chosen. So that's why I asked that question earlier. Is it because of the unique kind of situation that we have here in our city, because of the kind of operation and that we have our benefits for our employees as opposed to other munis? We don't participate in Social Security. I know that. So that may have a problem with, a challenge with health benefits and that kind of thing. I don't know, retirement, whatever. So that's why I asked that kind of question earlier. So I do hear the concern, and I've had the concern over the years as well. So I want to make sure that we are doing what can be done to support making sure other businesses, other entities are considered. And even though in this case, we find the one rising up to the plate oftentimes. Thank you.
Are there any other commissioner questions or comments? If not, I have one question, and I'd like to make a summary comment, if I could. How did the credit for the 5,000 ongoing actuarial service come about? And is that net of the 128, or does that take us to the 128?
That takes us to the 128. When they've come back to us, they've sharpened their pencil and they've given us more services. They've provided a larger team and reduced their annual rate. And so that's how that came about.
Very good. And then, so here, I want to make a summary comment, and really I'm making it to Gallagher because I know they're present on the phone as well on this. They have done a great job over time in providing us services. And so what you're hearing in this is not an absence of appreciation or a lack of enthusiasm and anticipation of what can be provided in the 3 years ahead, but it is a cautioning and really motivated primarily by our fiduciary responsibility to our citizens to make certain that we're maximizing exposures for the optimal amount of money. And so we're confident of the RFP process, Joyce and Mark, the way you do your vetting, and that's wonderful, and appreciate the recommendation. But particularly in this area, and this is my final comment, of healthcare, we are in a period of time where there's some revolutionary opportunities being taken place. And I think it's very important as we look forward in this next contract, assuming this is approved on Monday with Gallagher and on their consulting service basis, to really go broad in some of the opportunities that exist today that can make dramatic differences in healthcare costs. And so I'm just seeding that desire, certainly from a governance standpoint, as we go forward, and the opportunity to discuss some of those issues alongside them. All right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thanks for your work on this.
Thank
you. All right, that takes us then, City Manager, to item C.
Can you hear me? Hold on 1 second. We're having some technical difficulty with the audio.
We are working on technological enhancements for our city manager, even at the very present time, to make it possible to communicate clearly with all of our citizenry. And Alex, thank you for your help on that. Okay, try again.
Can you hear me okay?
Too soft. We're better in the earlier alternative.
How about now?
That's better,
Better? Okay.
but you need to speak loudly.
All right. Can you hear me?
Not well enough. That's all right. We can pause.
While we're at this break, could I take the opportunity just to remind everyone that we're going to do head and shoulder shots on Monday, starting at 2:30. Initially, we stated we were going to do them in the communications office, but we're going to do them on the third floor. I don't know why I did four. We're going to do them on the third floor because we also need to get a group shot at the dais, but we'll have everything set up. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for organizing that, sir.
Okay. Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor? We there? Okay. I think, again, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sean,
Yes,
we
sir.
can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, here's what we're gonna have to do for now. You can hear me, but I can't hear you. So I'm just gonna proceed with the item while we try to work on making it possible for me to hear you. So I'm unclear of what may have been said during the delay there, but agenda item B has been removed from the agenda, and so I'm now going to present agenda item C under the city manager section. Okay. Agenda item C is a recommendation regarding an award of an RFQ number 8365 to Rada Construction for Phase 2 construction management at-risk services at John McGee Park. John McGee Park, which was formerly known as the Cypress Youth Sports Complex, is our 33-acre park located on East Edgewood Drive in southeast Lakeland. The park currently has 4 multi-purpose fields, 2 of which are lighted, a restroom facility, parking, and a maintenance building, which were constructed as Phase 1 and opened to the public in 2012. Phase 2 of the project will include construction of 2 additional lighted multi-purpose fields and a playground. The city's purchasing division issued the RFQ in December 2018 to obtain qualified submittals from firms experienced in professional construction management with guaranteed maximum prices for the construction of Cypress Youth Sports Complex Phase 2. The firms were expected to demonstrate qualifications and experience in construction areas such as parks of 15 or greater acres constructed in Central Florida, competitive sports field construction, and sports field lighting and construction on sites of previously mined land. One submittal was received from Rada Construction. Purchasing sent a notice of intent to award to Rada on January 14, 2019. the city worked with Rada Construction and Hardeman Kempton, which is the engineer of record, to design the project to match the budget. The city adopted an MOU on October 19, 2020 to accept a $600,000 donation from the McGee family and then renamed the park the John McGee Park. Funds for construction of Phase 2 are currently budgeted in the FY21 Public Improvement Fund and Parks and Recreation Impact Fee District 2 at $1 million, and also the McGee family donation of $600,000 for the total project budget of the $1.6 million. So staff will recommend that the City Commission authorize the appropriate city officials to award the RFQ and the contract to Rada Construction for the not to exceed price as stated to complete Phase 2 of the John McGee Park. That completes my presentation, and I'll see if I'm able to hear you just in just a moment.
And if not, I can pass on some questions. So, Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. What is the protocol if we only get one bid? Do we have it rebid, or you just kind of work out the best deal you can with that particular bidder?
That varies, Commissioner Reed. If the one bid meets all of the requirements, it may be awarded. If the one respondent, and if the one respondent does not, then at times we may go out and rebid.
Thank you.
Any other questions by commissioners? Let's go to the Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Sean, what's our timeline on Phase 2 for this?
I don't know the timeline. I'm looking to see who we may have on from Parks and Rec. There's Pam Page, so Pam can give us a timeline.
Thank you.
We expect that the project will be completed within 1 year from the time that we start construction. We're hoping to start construction before the rainy season this year because it's so difficult to work with in previously mined lands in the summertime. So it will be 1 year.
Any other questions, Bob? Any comments you want to make at all? All right, seeing none, let's go to the next item, D.
Okay, item D is a recommendation regarding a change order for Register Construction and Engineering for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Project at Lakeland International Airport. Of course, that acronym for the organization is NOAA. In February 2020, the U.S. government issued a request for lease proposal seeking additional space to accommodate the expansion of NOAA operations, which includes the ability to add up to 50 to 75 additional staff and 2 additional aircraft. Based on a lease agreement entered into with NOAA in April 2020, that committed NOAA to expand into an adjacent space at the Airside Center. The airport received approvals from the commission to enter into a contract with Register Construction and Engineering to provide the construction services. The improvement for NOAA's expansion are substantially complete, and Register has submitted a change order to close out the project in the amount of $429,021 for the additional work to be completed. The change order in that amount includes the cost for construction modifications that were made to the initial plans. This included providing a complete generator backup for the expansion area, additional data drops to support NOAA's operations, additional electrical work and equipment requested by NOAA for the hangar, and fire pump and tank improvements requested by the airport. These additional expenses were partially offset by the release of the owner's contingency included in the base contract, as well as contract savings related to several trade allowances. The shell of the infrastructure, additional investments are recovered through the base rent collected in the NOAA lease agreement, while the costs for the tenant improvements are amortized and repaid by NOAA to the airport over the 15-year term of the agreement at cost plus interest, and it will be paid as additional rent. It will be recommended that the City Commission authorize the appropriate officials to enter into the change order with Register Construction as presented, and no appropriations are required to accommodate this request. And we have Gene Conrad with us if there are any questions.
Any questions on this from commissioners? Thank you for being here, Gene. Off to item F.
Okay, item F is a recommendation regarding ratification of collective bargaining agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police, also known as the FOP, Lakeland Lodge 185, and the City of Lakeland. As you know, representatives from the Lakeland Police Department, Human Resources, Finance, and outside counsel and bargaining committees representing police officers, sergeants, and lieutenants have been actively negotiating the initial collective bargaining agreement between the City of Lakeland and the FOP. The proposed agreements were recently ratified by the Lakeland FOP memberships on May 4th and 5th, and now await final consideration by the City Commission. To discuss some of the material changes to the previous contract that the city had with the former PBA, the material changes include: number one, the parties have agreed to a 2-year agreement commencing October 11th, 2020 and expiring on September 30th, 2022. Secondly, the parties have agreed to a modification regarding take-home vehicles, which will increase the current 20-mile radius from the police station to a 25-mile radius from the current city limits. Number three, the parties have agreed to modification regarding wages. Effective upon ratification of the agreement, the following provisions will then go into effect regarding wages. For fiscal year 2021, which will begin October the 11th, 2020, so that will include some back pay back to October of 2020. For police officers, the contract will provide that we eliminate the bottom 3 steps in the current pay plan. Officers currently in steps 1 through 3 will be moved to the same hourly rate as a step 4 police officer. Once that is completed, all officers will then receive an 11.4% pay increase, reflecting the most recent pay study that the commission is aware of and we discussed during the closed session. No across the board or merit increases will then be applied for FY21, and that is because of the 11.4% across the board increase that will occur as previously presented. So that is the wages for police officers. For sergeants at the police department, all sergeants will receive a 9.19% pay increase, reflecting that same most recent pay study. And then after that increase, no across the board or merit increases additionally for FY21. For the police lieutenants, all lieutenants will receive a 7.21% pay increase, again reflective of that pay study. And then following that increase, no across the board or merit additionally for FY21. For fiscal year 2022, all of the FOP members will be provided the same citywide across the board increase as approved by the City Commission. Additionally, all FOP members will be provided the same citywide merit increases as approved by the City Commission, but that is upon completion of an acceptable performance review during each member's normally scheduled review cycle, and except for those that are topped out at the very top of the pay range. If no across the board or merits are provided by the City Commission for the general employees in fiscal year 2022, then the FOP or the city will have an opportunity to open a wage reopener at that time. One of the other material changes to the former contract with the PBA is that the parties have agreed that the benefits under the city's health, dental, vision, and supplemental and flexible spending account plans, which are applicable to the general non-bargaining unit employees of the city, will be applicable to the FOP members as well, and will be subject to such future changes in benefit plan terms, contributions, benefits providers, and administrators as are applicable to the general non-bargaining unit city employees. So with those very important material changes, we will recommend that the City Commission ratify the proposed CBA, collective bargaining agreement, to reflect the changes and amendments that have been presented. and that the city will execute the appropriate documents with the FOP to complete the negotiation process and make those proposed agreements effective. So with that, that completes a presentation of the item, and I'll stand for any questions. And we have some of the members of the city's negotiation team on the call as well.
First, I think on behalf of the commission, I want to compliment the work done in a short period of time by the FOP and staff in getting this very important result in place for us to be able to consider. I appreciate the FOP and the members voting to approve it. The large amounts of money that are atypical and reflected within it reflect the needs that exist today for parity and beyond parity for being able to attract the kind of quality we want to have, continue to have within the Lakeland Police Department in a time where policing isn't everybody's top of the list job preference. So for those who might look at these increases as being exorbitantly high, there are adjustments to, and really a result of the fact that we had a period of time we weren't having a contract take place that made that gap continue to grow over time. So this gets that fixed, and then it abates the across the board merits for this year as well, so that the known number is in place. And I think all those points are very, very material as we take a look at it. So my compliments in that process. Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And also, as you just mentioned, compliments to both parties in getting to where we are, because we need to get here and be here today to be able to move forward to make this, to ratify this particular situation. Well, my question to you, Mr. Rouse, is that there are no known differences or changes other than what we had our one-on-ones, etc. So everything is still as you just shared, and no other particular changes that come about. Am I saying that correct?
Commissioner, if you're referring to the closed session that we had, what's been presented here is consistent with those discussions.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Any other comments or questions by commissioners? And of course, you still can do this on Monday. Commissioner-elect Music, is that a hand? Okay. All right. So I think we are good with that, and it is, again, kudos in getting that job done. All right, that is the end of your section, sir, and brings us back to our city attorney. First reading, A1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one last map for this morning, so I'd ask Kevin to bring that one up. This helps to explain all this. This is a request by a property owner to vacate a portion of right-of-way just to the east of 119 Kearneywood Street. There's a medical office just to the west of the blue crosshatch area, and they are doing some renovations. And as a result of those renovations, it's kicked in some ADA requirements. So they need to construct I don't think it's a ramp, it's something similar to that, to comply with the current ADA requirements. So they are requesting that we vacate 3.5 feet of that right-of-way. You can see that, I guess the plan was to run Orleans Avenue to the south through there one time, but that never happened. That's just really a parking lot at this point, that the right-of-way to the south there. We have, I got a call from one property owner just to the south on Cortlandt Circle yesterday who was not necessarily concerned, but just wanted to make sure that this would not affect their access, because they do access a garage on their property through this little alley area. And I provided him the survey as well as this diagram. So, and they saw what we're doing and did not have any concerns with the vacation. Property owner to the east was also notified. They have no objections either. So we're just requesting that you vacate this 3.5 feet, and we will be retaining a public utility easement over the area to be vacated.
And City Attorney Davis, the area immediately to the right of that right-of-way being vacated is the alley. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. It's a 20-foot alley, so this is just a 3.5-foot section of that being vacated. So there's still plenty of room for someone to get through there.
Okay. Questions by commissioners or comments? Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Palmer. I want to apologize. I probably instigated you some issues yesterday. I went to look at the property and I misread the information, and we had a similar situation where I didn't want to make sure we weren't giving right away to one person, not the other. And so I met all two of the property owners in question. I guess they called up to check, but I appreciate your getting with them, calling you and getting the clarification. And I apologize for creating some more havoc on my behalf.
No apologies. It's better to know if there are any problems now versus later.
We appreciate both your vigilance, Commissioner Reed, as well as that refreshing, cathartic moment. Right. Next item, sir.
All right. The next item is a resolution that just authorizes the city to apply for a state revolving fund loan through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for the English Oaks project. That project has been developed in 6 distinct phases. 3 of those have been fully completed, and we're about to complete the 4th phase of the English Oaks project. That's the extension of a large force main from the southwest area of the city, where a lot of residential development is occurring, across town, all the way into the Glendale wastewater station, treatment station on Lakeland Highlands Road. So it's a major project. This is simply authorizing us to apply for a loan through, once again, the state revolving fund program with the DEP to help fund the last 2 phases of that project. Robbie Kniss is on the line, can answer any further questions you might have.
I see none. Sir. Next.
Next is a subordination agreement with Polk County. They are going to be developing a roundabout at the intersection of North Galloway Road and Sleepy Hill Road. The city has 2 different easements in the area that they're going to need for right of way to construct this roundabout. One's an electric easement and one's a water easement. And so under this subordination agreement, like all the other ones we entered into, mostly with the FDOT, we agree to relinquish our easement rights, and we can continue to remain in the right of way until they need it. Once they need it, they can make us move out of the right of way, but they agree to pay all the costs we incur for relocation, including acquiring any new easements that might be necessary.
That's on that item. All right, B3.
All right, let's see. B3 is just part of the process to vacate that right of way on 119 Kearneywood Street. What we always, our process calls for is to adopt a resolution and an ordinance to vacate right of way, just to make sure that the public is getting full notice of what's going on. We will actually publish this resolution in the newspaper to provide full notice. But this is the same vacation as we just heard on 119 Kearneywood Street. All right, the 4th item is also related to a miscellaneous item, the 6C4 miscellaneous item. This is authorizing a lease purchase agreement with PNC Equipment Finance to purchase 100 new E-Z-Go golf carts for use at Cleveland Heights Golf Course. The city's existing 4-year lease for the carts that are out there now will be expiring in January of 2022. And I think you all have heard that the rounds being played out there are up significantly, which has resulted in more wear and tear on the golf carts. So there was an opportunity to go ahead and do a new lease purchase term, start a new 4-year term, and get new golf carts, and do so at a slight discount from what we would otherwise if we wait to the end of the lease term. Under this lease purchase agreement, we would lease 100 E-Z-Go golf carts for a period of 4 years at $7,040 per month. And then at the end of the 4 years, would have the option to purchase those golf carts for $100,000. I don't think we typically exercise purchase agreements for equipment at the end of the lease term because they're usually the maintenance implications of that, of having old equipment, are significant. So we usually would do another lease at that point. But nonetheless, we do have that option at the end of this 4-year term. With just the lease over the 4-year term, it would be $337,920. If we exercise the $100,000 purchase option, you said $100,000 of that, so it'd be $437,920. There's also a 4-year warranty included in this deal to cover any maintenance required on the major golf cart components. And I believe Bob Donahue is on the call or meeting and can answer further questions.
Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner McCarley.
Just a quick question, Bob. I'm trying to find you on my screen. So I just did the math really quick. That's like $845 a golf cart. That's under market, yes? If somebody bought a random golf cart. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, appreciably under market. Yes, ma'am. Commissioner-elect Music.
Hey, Bob, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Question: What is the expected life, or how many rounds can you get out of a golf course? I mean, or a golf cart. What's this thing going to look like in 4 years?
Typically, when you really start worrying about it is when you get over 25,000 amps. We started experiences back in August. That was a huge red flag for us. So we started taking those golf carts, putting them to the back of the line, and rotating on a regular basis to try to get through the additional year. The COVID had many effects on our public and our parks. One of the effects was after COVID, the restrictions started loosening up. It was great for golf, for our golf course. But due to COVID, we, instead of having 2 golfers per cart, we went to 1 golfer per cart. And because of the social distancing, so that drove the amp hours through the roof. And so, for instance, and prior to 4-ball, we spent $4,500 on new batteries just to get us through 4-ball and try to get us through the summertime. And typically a golf cart has 6 batteries, and we're at about $70 a battery. So we're trying to fight that right now to get through the summertime. We do expect golf rounds to ease up during the summer because that's what normally happens because of our Florida heat. So we're, like I say, we're trying to get to this September, October date as quickly as possible. We are asking now to do this in advance because of the lead time it takes to get new golf carts. So that's why we're doing it probably a few months earlier, placing this order now versus waiting.
How many carts do we currently have?
Pardon? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have spoke. How many carts do we currently have in use there?
100.
It is 100, so it's a complete replacement.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Bob, when you replace batteries, don't you typically replace all 6 in a cart at the same time, or can you? Yeah. So that's a 6 times 7, so 420. Yes, sir. Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning.
I was, why don't golf carts are selling real good. Why do we always have our general practice that we don't sell them at the end? We don't take, do we have to take possession of all 100, or can you take 1 or 2, or what is the,
Normally, the vendor that's whatever they're replacing with, they want the entire fleet. They don't want you to cherry pick the best ones and give them the not the best ones. We actually had talk with Freddie Jenkins about purchasing our fleet and what that would entail. But to get the price that we negotiated with EasyGo, it was them taking the entire fleet because obviously they can make money on the backside also, which helps bring this price down.
I see in the lease that it includes maintenance on the thing as well as batteries. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir. For the entire 4 years.
Okay, so we don't have to buy new batteries. They just bring them in and we swap them out or something?
Yes, sir. We have a mechanic on site, but he mostly services our tractors, mowers, that type of equipment. But when it comes to batteries and stuff like that, we can handle that in-house with our present staff.
So, from looking at it, I think our largest profit center is our golf carts, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, yeah, obviously golf carts and golf play, but even when you buy a membership, you pay for the golf cart, the use of the golf cart, and the base fee is waived.
And
yes, it's a large money maker for us.
we're probably not pushing too many memberships right now. Of course, again, with what's going on at Wedgwood, I would anticipate in the next year or so, our play rounds may radically increase.
Right, you're right. I mean, like I told you guys when we talked about earlier in the during the your retreat, is that the golf cars, obviously Cleveland Heights, I don't think has ever really been in this good a shape, and COVID drove the numbers through the roof, which we're glad about, as far as that goes. But this summertime, will that hold? Personally, I don't think it will. I think the numbers will subside a little bit. I don't think we're going to be as good as we were as far as our numbers go this summer versus last summer, because restrictions are being lifted. People have more choices now of what to do this summer. So, we'll see how it plays out. But we still expect a strong summer, barring weather. But, we're like I say, we're holding our breath and waiting to see what it is.
So we are back to 2 riders per cart now?
Yes, sir. We just started that.
So we get double the money, don't we? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And from a marketing standpoint, don't forget to use this great condition golf course this summer because it's in stupendous shape.
Thank you.
All right. I see that our finance director, Mr. Brossard, has a question or comment.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to add one additional thing. Unlike so often when we come back to you and ask for a lot more money for things like fire trucks and or solid waste trucks, we have not seen that type of cost increase in the golf cart sector. So what Brock was able to do with his team and Bob and Jeff Stearns and Earl Morris on our side is actually negotiate a cost that is less than what we're paying currently in our budget. So the monthly cost for this lease is going to go down. I think you're budgeted right now, Bob, around $7,500 a month, I think.
Yes, and 75.52.
Right. So it's going down a little bit. Just another little benefit that comes out of the process as well.
Great comment, sir. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, next item. Thank you very much, Bob. Good job on that.
Thank you.
That's it for resolutions under miscellaneous. The first item, I believe, is the last meeting where you approved the purchase of a property up on North 98, just south of the Home Depot, for a new lift station. And this is engineering services agreement with Chastain Skillman to do all the engineering design work necessary. It's not just design, but permitting, bidding, construction engineering, inspection services related to the new pump station to be constructed on that property. Once again, the property is just south of Home Depot and the American Car Center up there. The existing pump station is from the 1960s and was renovated in the 1990s, and it's at the end of its life. So we're going to have to replace that. Chastain Skillman's not to exceed fee for the engineering services they will be providing is $348,900. And I believe David Bayhan and Robbie Kniss are here again for any questions.
And this is in the budget, correct, for fiscal year 2021?
That's correct.
Questions by commissioners? Seeing none, sir, let us go to C2.
C2 is a task authorization again with Chastain Skillman for them to perform sanitary sewer system modeling evaluation and strategic planning study, which is just a fancy way of saying a wastewater master plan. They will examine what the city's wastewater infrastructure needs will be over the next 20 years, determine where there are deficiencies, where the population will be growing, where the demand will be, and prioritize our capital improvement budget in order to keep up with the demands. Their not to exceed fee with this associated with this task authorization is $499,060, and that is also in Water Utilities FY21 budget. I believe the same individuals are on the line if you have questions.
I have a question, and it's an assumptive one, that this assumes the English Oaks project is up and running, correct?
And, yeah, Robbie.
Yes, yeah, it does. And English Oaks is very close to finishing construction. I say English Oaks, there are 2 phases, which is in that resolution to get additional money for, but the main 30-inch line running from the airport all the way out to Glendale has finished construction. And we're just wrapping up punch list items and should be in the next, I hope, couple of months, we'll turn on their booster station and start utilizing that. But that'll all be included in this master plan.
That's just outstanding, outstanding work. That is a long line. Great job. Any other comments or questions? All right, I see none. So we've done 3, so that takes us to item 4.
Which is related to the golf cart lease for Cleveland Heights. I believe I'm done at this point.
Okay, so they're on the utility, that's one on consent. So we now really have, before we start our 10 o'clock meeting in 3 minutes, an opportunity for comments only related to anything that's this weekend from commissioners, nothing beyond, so that we can keep this window short. Are there any commissioner or commissioner-elect comments about the coming weekend? Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. I just had a brief question. In the Lake Morton, I see Wood, somebody's doing some testing out in the lake. What are they doing out at Lake Morton? Somebody named Wood something. They're testing water, or anybody know what's going on at Lake Morton?
I believe that's our water quality testing that's going on. Mr. Cook.
Commissioner, we have state biologists doing some research in many of our lakes. They were on Lake Hunter, they're on Lake Morton, they're doing water quality and wildlife assessment in our water bodies right now.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments for the weekend? Then we are going to take a break. It is 9:58. Let's join at 10:10, and we'll start our body cam workshop. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we need